David Murphy at Business of Apps, and I'm talking today with Adam Landis, who is a strategic advisor at Branch. Adam, how are you doing?
Hi, David. I'm doing well. Thank you for having me. For those of you who don't know, Branch is a technology platform that helps brands better connect, link, and measure their marketing efforts across multiple channels. We've got 3 different product lines: deep linking, the MMP, and then newly released short links and QR codes.
I know we're going to talk today about personalized artificial intelligence. Could we start with a definition of that, please?
It's dangerous defining anything in AI today because things are moving so fast that you kind of have to check the news before you can even say anything about the market because it might have changed. But to keep it simple, personalized artificial intelligence is simply artificial intelligence that uses user data to come up with an answer. And that can be something as sophisticated as ChatGPT that has a context of millions of tokens personalized to a user, all the way down to something that we use every day today, like Amazon's front page that uses your existing shopping to personalize your front page. So simply put, personalized AI is just feeding off of user data to create something unique.
Now, you recently wrote in a blog post, and I'm going to make sure I get this right, most analysis agree that we're on the precipice of a profound change in how users engage with the world of information. We're witnessing a fundamental shift in brand user interaction. You also talked about a shift from SEO, search engine optimization, to AI, artificial intelligence optimization. What did you mean by that?
If we look back kind of to history on what search brought to the internet, it really shaped a lot of how the internet created. It was the paradigm of the internet as we know it. It was a gateway to the web of information. You would input a term, it would return you a search result. Now, your response would be the same as mine. If we put in Business of Apps, we would get largely the same result. Generalized, same for everyone. It gave rise to the direct-to-consumer business model. And it was really how we orchestrated the creation of products, how we orchestrated the go-to-market of our products, and the marketing of our products and services that we brought to the market. That was then. So AI is really changing how we interact with the world of communication. It values a very different type of information. It has an incredibly rich set of context that it can use to provide a single answer. It doesn't generalize a term for one. It has a lot more information it can provide. It has an incredibly rich set, a deeper set of agency in the sense that it can keep you bound in its walls much easier. Search would allow you to return to a search term, then you go to that product's webpage. A personalized AI or an LLM or AI as it exists today really keeps you within that boundary. And these concepts, these changes are really changing the way that we have to go to market. We can't rely on the old-fashioned search engine optimization. Now we have to focus on what I call artificial intelligence optimization to really work within the bounds of AI.
So you say things need to change, then what do brands need to do to prepare for this new era?
Yeah, that's the big question. And again, things are changing so fast that it's difficult to say what will emerge as the important aspects. But the first concept is for brands to recognize that there is a profound change happening. And this profound change is a differing way that the users interact with information. So understanding change is the first thing. Because things are changing so fast, there will be changes. But today, there's 3 things that you really need to focus on in order to be able to take advantage of the way the LLMs and AI exist and are operating today. And that is, the first is presenting data in a clear way that rewards the user interacting with the LLM. It used to be that you could be rewarded for, say, too ambiguous or even contradictory search terms. So like this microphone, I could have a landing page for the biggest microphone and I could have a landing page for the smallest microphone. Both could funnel to a product page to buy a microphone. AI, because it aggregates information, will view that as conflicting information and might disregard the result if it's ambiguous. So presenting data in the way that the LLM is going to create is number 1. Number 2 is probably the toughest today, is measurement. You need to be able to measure your efforts. And that's difficult today because there's not a lot of standards that we can rely on, and standards are required in order to be able to provide measurement to scale. So There are emerging concepts like MCP or Model Context Protocol. You can shoehorn existing analytics platforms in order to be able to kind of figure out what's working. But it is important to be able to figure out what's working so you can focus on the third step, which is the optimization of your efforts. So being able to iterate and finding out what works, finding out how to rise to the top of the discovery algorithms the LLMs are doing, or the discovery artificial intelligence that the algorithms are returning. Those are kind of the 3 steps that you need to be able to focus on today to prepare for success.
How long do you think it's going to take for brands to actually get this right, and to put these quite fundamental shifts into place?
Well, a lot of them are doing it today. And it's important to be able to do it today because I just read the other day that 96% of brands or 96% of marketers are using AI today. And when I think about what is it using AI, I was kind of thinking about how do I go present to people like, hey, these are the fundamental changes of AI. And Luma Capital actually beat me to it. They released a State of Digital, which is a great way of kind of looking at the market. And they talk about it like a hierarchy of AI. And that hierarchy today, people are already using it for workflow. So at the very basis, workflow automation. So think about doing something that we're already doing, but automating it. And the best examples of this that are at scale today are PMax and advanced shopping campaigns. So Google and Meta are both using these and now Axion with AppLovin. These are being widely scaled in the market today. And that's ML, but ML is a subcomponent of artificial intelligence. The next step on this hierarchy is generative content. So think about generative copy, generative images. I have a friend who started a company who's doing generative video for ads. These things in personalization with generative AI is going to be kind of the next phase. The third phase is the change of information retrieval. And so I talked about artificial intelligence optimization. That's best summarized is that the changing paradigm of how users go about search, and how brands are going to have to change the way they figure out user discovery. And then the fourth kind of in the future, things that are being worked on by companies today is going to be a completely new aspect of how advertising is using AI. And those might be something like Sam Altman talks about an affiliate model where ChatGPT actually pays for referrals. I can see a world where there's hyper-specific product recommendations that the brand is enabling. I can see it where someday brands are just mailing products directly to a user based off of AI outputs. And you open up your mail and all of a sudden you get a product trial, free product trial, or even custom product creation for a user based off of the artificial intelligence. Because there's so much more context. Advertising is going to change dramatically. We can be hyper-focused or create hyper-specific products for our users based off of what that's going to enable. What that will be, TBD.
Are there any other aspects of advertising where you think AI is going to have a big impact?
I've been in advertising for almost 20 years now. So I would say that rather than focusing on the technology, the ad tech, which is a rabbit hole that we could go down, focusing on kind of what will happen with the brands. So what the brands can do to embrace the change and how they will go about leading or succeeding in advertising. I would say that they focusing on the paradigm, real world services or products that enable the LLMs to provide information that they can then take into action is going to be very helpful for those brands. The second is brands that are constantly, or brands or products or services that are constantly providing new, fresh, original information. Wikipedia is a great example of this. They've actually enabled LLMs and AI to freely access its information. The reason they're going to be valuable in the future is because they're constantly being able to update and provide relevant, fresh information. Now, I will say Wikipedia has a very unique monetization model that not many other companies have, which is a donation-based model. And the monetization model of this fresh content is to be determined, but because of the need, it will be figured out eventually. And then I'd say the third of the successful companies are going to be the ones that really take advantage of the new paradigm and are iterating quickly. So providing real-time inventory that can be accessed by the LLM, one-click purchasing within that boundary the LLM can provide. And then those are adapting quickly to find the strengths of this platform or these new emerging technologies and take advantage of them.
So 2 follow-up questions to that. You've talked about the type of companies that will lead in AI advertising. Would you want to name any names at this stage? And also, the other end of the spectrum, who's going to struggle with it?
The best companies that are leading today are ones that have accidentally found themselves in a leadership position because they haven't really understood. I mean, AI is a year old, so not many people have been able to build their companies from ground up to be AI native as product companies. I'm not talking about technology companies that are AI native, but companies that are allowing the LLMs free access of information and providing unique expert level data and are ending up at the top of the search are companies that are specific. So I'd actually, to put back to everyone else in the world out there is what's the last company that was referenced by an LLM and why? When you read a search and it came up with a company, why did it come up with that company? What were you searching that company returned or came up from that provided results? Now, Amazon's obviously a great answer of products that have been using AI effectively, but in the new emergence of companies, it's going to be the companies that show up. Now, the counteract, which ones are going to struggle? Think about which ones struggled with search. So which companies really failed with search? The first ones were ones that were solving what I call old problems. Search enabled access to information, freely distributable access to information, which really allowed you to circumvent business models that were successful before. News was rewarded. Local syndicated news was rewarded because it distributed information to masses that were difficult to distribute before. When the internet provided that information for free at the touch of everyone's fingers, that business model was no longer rewarded. And then other companies that fail to really to understand the change are investing in the wrong medium. So you think about companies that would buy a full page yellow page ad and ignore their Yelp page, or companies that go off and buy a brand new awning for the restaurant and not have a Uber Eats page. Those companies are struggling in the search paradigm. And if you think about what LLMs are doing, which is providing rich context-rich information at the fingertips of users, the companies that are going to struggle are the ones that are providing bland information. So information that just is a bunch of garbage that forced advertising or that was making money from advertising. And the best example of that, a recipe. There's this joke that anyone on the internet has seen is like, I don't want to hear your backstory. Just give me the recipe on how to make the item. Those companies are struggling because they would get 4 or 5 impressions from an ad and someone would scroll through their life story to get to the banana bread recipe, whereas ChatGPT will just respond to that. And the other is made for advertising websites like the carinsurance.com that would just provide you 3 questions that you had about insurance and then had an affiliate model to click you off to go to those insurance models. Those companies are going to struggle in the future. So companies that are ignoring the changes and not adapting or investing in a slick web page when ChatGPT doesn't care about your slick web page. They care about the information that you provide. Those are the ones that are going to struggle.
Pulling back out again to this personalized AI space, who do you think is going to own that? Is it going to be big tech like Google or Microsoft or Meta or someone in a garage, a startup that we don't even know about yet?
The recipe for success of what really is going to make a company succeed is contextually relevant information. So being able to get access to or provide contextually relevant information, get adoption from end users, and get trust for you end users to bring in more contextually relevant information. Now, the startups, like I'd say OpenAI, even though OpenAI and Perplexity are hard to be called startups with billions of dollars of valuation, but really they are by definition startups. They have the ability to move fast to get adoption, and that this AI first approach allows them to deploy what the incumbents would consider margin destroying technology. The best example of that is Google. So Google can't deploy LLMs at scale until it figures out how not to cannibalize search. So it's classic innovator's dilemma, where they need to figure out how to protect their margins. And then they can earn trust. Those startups can earn trust by doing a good job, by actually providing a good information. OpenAI and Claude is an example of this, for just providing very high quality products. They can gain user trust. If you look at the incumbents, they actually have a lot of the adoption. They have a lot of the usage. They have a lot of the trust already. They have access to the data. I mean, Google has Gmail. Apple owns the device. Google owns the device. They need to avoid the cannibalization and focus on execution. Now, Apple is a good example of a company that has not done a good job with execution. Google has done a good job with innovation, but their execution is TBD. Google's pretty good at releasing products, not so great at making all those products gain to scale. So I think it's anybody's win. There's a lot of money to go around, but those three concepts are going to shape the day.
Good stuff. And if I could ask you to sort of look ahead, get your crystal ball out, what do you think is going to define the companies that are going to lead the AI race? So if we look back at it 10 years from now, what will be the characteristics, the obvious strengths of those who successfully leveraged AI and made a great business out of it?
This is going to both apply, I think, to the technology companies, like the ad tech companies, as well as the brands. And that is companies that have or can get access to data and use it for personalization. So the first step is if I have information on the user, I can provide a more contextually rich information. So if there's two brands and one knows that I like blue shirts, they can provide results that are customized to me, that I'm more likely to go buy a blue shirt. So data usage, deploying the widest, being able to get it out to the most, that data out to the most areas possible will gain adoption. And being able to gain adoption is going to be able to spread your chips around to figure out you're not chasing one model. You're not just on OpenAI. You're not just on Perplexity. You're being able to deploy it the widest. And then the last, and this is probably the most unsure, is we don't know what the monetization model of this new paradigm is going to be yet. It's going to be affiliate. There's probably advertising. It's probably some sort of both. Might be something new that we've never heard of. But figuring out the monetization model that works for them and figuring out how to make it work for them, they're in a good situation.
And just going back to that point about data, where are the brands going to get this data? You know, everywhere you look, you read about signal loss, cookies, whatever Google did or didn't do to deprecate cookies. There's still a large amount of inventory on the open web that's unaddressable through cookies. Is it all about first-party data, or are there any other solutions to that issue that you see on the horizon?
First-party data is important, especially for brands. Gaining access to it, leveraging it where you can, not letting it slip through your fingers. Branch does a good job of helping companies use their first-party data effectively to market to users. So we spend a lot of time talking to brands about this. It's going to become more and more important to use that data. But there's also other avenues like data partnerships. So how can I leverage partnerships? ChatGPT just allowed access to Gmail. So I just connected my Gmail to ChatGPT. That's data that ChatGPT will likely use for the future. So keeping yourself open to be able to leverage access to create mutually beneficial situations is a way for you to actually leverage data. And as there still is, the bulk of our time still is spent in traditional web, but increasingly spent more with AI, capture that data so you can leverage it and use it effectively.
So even in this world, especially in this AI-driven world, there's still the ability to get people to share their data, like you say, sharing your Gmail, as long as you know what the value exchange is, you know what you're getting in return.
Why did I connect my Gmail to OpenAI? It's because I want the context of the people I talk to in email to help me better produce LLM answers. So I would very likely share my Amazon shopping history to ChatGPT to help it recommend better products that work with stuff that I've bought or that are more likely to be something that I've bought. So there's going to be a lot of this type of value exchange in the future. And the brands that and ad tech companies that keep their eyes open to how that information can be exchanged are in a good situation.
Good stuff. Well, just to finish off, Adam, you said very little about branch during this interview, which is the sort of interview I like because you've been talking about the big themes. But I'll have to ask what part branch is playing in all this.
When there's an explosion of technology, an explosion of channels, when users are moving across different screens, that's good for branch, because what we do is we create a unified experience for brands across these different channels. So as users need to connect on the web, on the phone, through CTV, through LLMs, that's going to give branch an opportunity to add value to brands. Our position is, as we end users get more diversified with how we use technology, brands are going to need to pull that all together more cohesively, and branch is going to be there along the way, helping them reach, deliver, and measure their marketing efforts.
Adam, it's been great to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, David.